don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?
Peace, family. It's so nice to be with you guys. Tonight it's raining in some parts of the United States. It's flooding where we're getting ready to go to, but it doesn't matter. We're still HAPI will still be in Detroit, Michigan this weekend, kicking off our city tour. We are so excited to be finally screening this film in front of an audience. Yes, that's not online. So, please, if you are in the Detroit area, come out. We will be at the Charles Wright Museum. I'm telling you now, okay, because you do not want to miss this if you're in the Detroit area or if you're in the surrounding areas, Toledo, Ohio, it's just literally an hour away. Make sure you get your tickets now because it will be, we can't guarantee that there'll be tickets at the door. So just go to hapifilm.com and get your tickets for the Detroit screening. Okay, it's very, very important to do that. And we have after the screening, we have an exciting panel, and we will get to that once we're done with our announcements. The other thing, if you have not signed up for the ACAT tours, HAPI, and IKG Cultural Center tour to Egypt next year, One Africa, you're missing out. This is going to be fabulous. We have assembled we're having a 2-day conference, and we've assembled some of the brightest minds, and most of them are in HAPI, but there are some people who actually, for scheduling conflicts, like one of our guests tonight, due to scheduling conflicts, we couldn't get them into HAPI, but we are having this One Africa concert in Aswan, Egypt. And it features Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Dr. Solange Ashby, Anthony Browder, Dr. Wade Nobles, Professor James Small. And we just added, okay, and we also have Asar Imhotep, but we're so excited. We just added Dr. Bayina Bello. So this is going to be fabulous, okay? And if you can make this happen, just go to ACAT Tours. You put your deposit in. We have limited seats left. So it's very important. If you're thinking about going this trip, you want to come with us to Kemet next year, February 20th through the 28th. It is very important that you go ahead and put your deposit in. It's $300. It guarantees you a seat. And you also get, free interest into the One Africa 2-day conference. So it's going to be monumental. We haven't had anything like this for such a very long time. So it's very important that you come and support, and and you'll be part of history. Yep, and it's called One Africa: Returning to the Source Conference. So make sure you go to ACAT Tours. I'll put this up on the screen so that you can put your tickets. I mean, get your deposit. Just put it in so that you can get your slot. Also, real quickly, because one of our guests has to leave early, make sure that you guys are signed up to the newsletter at hapifilm.com. This is where you get all the information before anybody else. And you also get a really nice newsletter. We have, there's like 5 articles that we run every single month. Financial 101 news. We also cover a financial innovator, someone who has laid the path for us to be where we are right now. We always support a Black business, and sometimes it's a group of Black businesses that we give shine to. There's a health article, and then there's an update in terms of what's going on with HAPI. And throughout the month, we send other, other pieces of really important information that you will get first if you're signed up for the newsletter. So make sure you guys go to hapifilm.com hapifilm.com, and right there, hapifilm. And you can also get DVDs. We have beautiful Happy t-shirts, but all of that you can get right there if you go to hapifilm.com. Okay, so like I said, we are opening up our Happy City tour in Detroit. And this is going to be great because I'm from Detroit, so I get to come home. But tonight, we're so blessed because everyone that's sitting with us tonight will be on the panel on on Sunday at after we screen the film at the Charles Wright Museum. So first we have Michael Imhotep. He will be our host on Sunday. Then we have Chef Nezaa, Dimitrius Hutcherson, and this is like a surprise guest. Now, and also before I bring in this last person, we also have two other people who could not make the panel tonight, and that's Dr. Ken Harris and Malik Yakini. So, but they will be there on Sunday, and it's going to be very exciting. But the cool thing about it is that we have like a special guest that's now going to wait. The special guest is moving. I see him in the background moving. Okay, I'm gonna wait for the special guest to sit back down. Then we'll bring in the special guest that's going to be on our panel that's coming through to Detroit. So it's going to be really super cool. But let's get started just with this topic. This urban crisis in Black America. This is something that's happening, has been happening for a while, and there's many ways that we can get out of this and start to really thrive as a community. So my first question is actually for Michael, because Michael has to leave a little early. So Michael,
Yes.
can you well, let me just ask you this. Can reparations help the situation with the urban crisis?
Thanks for having me, Felicia, and look forward to seeing everybody this Sunday. Yes, repairing the damage can help with the urban crisis. When we deal with reparations, we have to really break this down and understand what we're talking about. And this is something I talk about on the African History Network show. The root concept of reparations is not a payday, but it's repairing the damage. That is the legacy of slavery, 246 years of slavery, and decades of Jim Crow segregation, redlining, etc. Laws and policies used to oppress African Americans. So understanding it in that concept, yes, repairing the damage can do that. It has to be comprehensive. It can't just be cash payments, even though cash payments can be part of an overall comprehensive repairing the damage package. And reparations is not going to be just one bill. It's probably going to be a generation of repairing the damage. You have to first adequately assess the damage that was done. And one of the things is that when we look at the study that came out in 2020, September 2020, from Citigroup Bank, it talks about how the U.S. economy has lost $16 trillion just over the last 20 years because of laws and policies that are discriminatory against African Americans when it comes to getting bank loans, college degrees, and buying homes. Okay, so what that study did was it showed how these policies are not just hurting African Americans, even though we get the brunt of it, but how it's also hurting all the economy. So yes, repairing the damage can do that. It can help with the urban crisis. Now, you have to address the laws and policies that were put in place. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth upon resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. There was a study from Brookings Institute that deals with how African-American homes are valued at $156 billion less than comparable white homes. That ties directly into the racial wealth gap. It's not the only thing that ties into the racial wealth gap, but it ties directly into that. When we look at laws like the Homestead Act of 1862, which gave away approximately 270 million acres of land from 1862 to at least 1968. Okay, some sources say 1988. The U.S. government gave away this land, and we were largely locked out of these massive land giveaways. So now we have to look at how do you actually pass reparations bills? Because based upon Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 of the U.S. Constitution, power of the purse. And people can go to house.gov and actually read this. A reparations bill has to pass both the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. It takes 218 votes to get any bill passed in the House of Representatives, a simple majority. The 435 seats in the House of Representatives takes 218 votes. In the Senate, for most bills, it takes 60 votes. So if you had a reparations bill, now, when we look at HR 40, and I know Dr. J will probably want to talk about this because he's one of my teachers and he is with Cobra. And I interviewed Cam Howard, national male co-chair of Cobra, a few months ago, right before HR 40 passed out of the House Judiciary Committee in the House of Representatives for the first time in 32 years. That's the farthest it's ever gotten, HR 40. As far as it's ever gotten. If you go to congress.gov, I encourage everybody to go to congress.gov. Congress.gov is where you go to read the bills that are coming from the House of Representatives and U.S. Senate. You can also see which members of the House and Senate actually support the bill.
Oh.
Congress.gov, HR 40 has 190 co-sponsors last time I checked, which is within the last month or so. All of them are Democrats. No Republicans support HR 40. I just want people to understand this. No Republicans. I need a Democrat and a Republican, but I ain't stupid either. No Republicans support HR 40. The two black Republicans in the House of Representatives are against HR 40. Burgess Owens from Utah, former NFL player, Republican, and I don't know if he has chronic traumatic encephalopathy, but he sure sounds like he does, CTE. He testified at 2 House committee hearings on reparations. He testified against black people getting reparations. You think he's going to vote for it? No. So now in the Senate, if all 50 Democrats in the Senate vote for HR 40, whenever it gets to the Senate, based upon everything the way it is now, you need 10 Republicans to vote for it. Well, Senator Tim Scott, Black Tea Party Republican for South Carolina, already says he doesn't vote for reparations. He's not going to vote for reparations. So if the black Republican is not going to vote for reparations, how many white ones you think going to vote for it? So it's understanding the process. And then the one of the most important things that we have to understand is that Americans are very ignorant of history. They don't even understand their own history. That's why they run around with the Confederate battle flag in Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee's army, calling it the Confederate flag. There were 3 flags that flew over the Confederate States of America from 1861 to 1865. That flag that's on the Dukes of Hazzard car, the General Lee, named after white supremacist slave owner, General Robert E. Lee, that's not the Confederate flag. They've adopted that as a symbol against civil rights, trying to oppress African Americans and keep us in the position that they think we're supposed to be in. So America must have a massive history lesson to connect the past to what's going on today and the structural inequities that the COVID pandemic has exposed a lot. Because for a lot of people, and you have even well-meaning people who they've heard about slavery, but they don't understand all these laws and policies. They don't even understand their history. And the fight over critical race theory being taught in schools, I've dealt with all this on my show, that is designed to deflect from dealing with the real history, and is used as an umbrella to attack anything dealing with racism, systemic racism, teaching about the history of slavery, etc. Lastly, there was a study that just came out early this month from USA Today Ipsos. 63% of American parents say they want their children to learn about the legacy of slavery in schools. 63% of Americans.
So they do or don't?
They do. Yeah, they do.
Okay.
63%. You have a lot of these stories I deal with. We just dealt with one dealing with a book ban, a ban on books in New York, at a school district in New York. 2 weeks ago, York, Pennsylvania, all white school board has banned a number of books written by non-white authors for children. Okay. The problem is you have a lot of white children who want to learn the truth. And there's a lot of teachers saying, look, they're arguing with the politicians saying, look, we need to be able to teach the real history in school. We need to be able to talk about white supremacy and things like this. Teachers are different ethnicities. So America must have a massive history lesson. We must understand the process to actually get a reparations bill passed. Okay, because a lot of us want it, but don't understand the process to get it. And lastly, I encourage people to read the U.S. Constitution as well, because Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution lays the foundation for a legal argument to reparations, and the U.S. Supreme Court case of 1841 of the Amistad slave ship backs it up as well. And that's outside of the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, which is another good legal argument.
Wow. Damn. Okay.
Dr. J is one of my teachers.
Yes. Mic drop. In fact, because you alluded to it. So Dr. Jeffries will be with us in Detroit. There you go. Hey, Dr. J.
Hey. How to our people?
Hotep, Dr. J.
Hotep.
Added on. He's going to
Wakanda forever.
Yep. Yes. Wow. God, there's so many things. So much you said, Michael. But one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about this ban book,
yes.
Banning the books, I looked at some new, now, they're really looking at the books that are actually existing now in curriculum in terms of social studies, and just how they phrase and talk about slavery, and how all of those books are like, those are, if you're talking about banning some books, those books need to be banned. I mean, they go go ahead.
But see, the people who make those decisions at the local level are the school board. They're largely the local school boards. There has been an attempt over the past about a year from conservatives to take over local school boards. It's being fueled by conservative think tanks. It's being fueled by Fox News. Part of this was spearheaded by Donald Trump. A lot of this was spearheaded by Stephen K. Bannon, who used to be an advisor for Trump in the Trump administration. He used to run Breitbart News. He did a podcast. He has a podcast. His podcast, where he talked about the road to political power is through local school boards, has been downloaded millions of times. And there's a 17-page expose from NBC News that dealt with this whole phenomenon. And it deals with, and I'll give you the name of it, it's right here. And I know it's 17 pages because I printed it out. This one here is called Critical Race Theory Battle Invades School Boards with Help from Conservative Groups. And it talks about what's behind all of this, okay? And how they how they're attacking anything dealing with teaching about history, systemic racism, slavery, when you want to talk about equal rights, all things like this. They put all this under the banner of critical race theory. And critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 school. It's in K through 12. It is a legal analysis that's taught in law schools, graduate schools, a little bit in college. And it's not taught in K through 12. They're using it as a red herring to then attack what it is that they don't like. But it's a backlash to the Black Lives Matter protest, George Floyd protest from summer 2020. We're seeing the backlash of all this. So we have to understand what's going on. And at the root of this is also preserving genetic white survival, because they have a negative birth rate. And the latest census shows this. This is the first time since 1790 that the population of white people in this country has dropped below 60%. It dropped to 57%. So it's a whole lot of white people, not all of them. Some of them don't matter. There's a whole lot of white people, especially Republicans, who are scared to death. And they're trying to maintain power as much as possible, which is why you have 400 plus voter restriction bills in 49 state legislatures. And what we see taking place in these state legislatures is the same thing we saw take place after Reconstruction ended in 1877. And they wrote into their state constitutions poll taxes and literacy tests. And Mississippi in 1890, which was the Mississippi Plan, became the model that was adopted by South Carolina in 1895, Louisiana 1898, Alabama 1901, and Florida had the first poll tax in the country as a state in 1899. So if we go study this history of what happened after Reconstruction ended, and the attempt from white supremacists in the South to fully take back control of the state legislatures, politics, take back the control of the local politics, because during Reconstruction, there's about 2,000 African Americans that got elected into political office. The state legislature in South Carolina was majority African American. Okay, and we see this backlash against this, and we see the same backlash today. So we have to learn from this history and fight back against this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Dr. J, I have a question for you. So what was the national plan for urban development in the United States? And when did this occur?
Well, very important question. I'm glad that you raised it. And certainly want to thank Michael for his presentation. I apologize for him that he was moving like a freight train that was in a hurry.
Well, yeah, no, because he has to leave. He has to leave like at 9:30.
I have to do my show at 11.
Okay, so he has a legitimate excuse on dropping all those bombs and whatnot that he was able to put in. But that's what this is all about. You see how marvelous it is to have knowledge at your fingertips, that you process it and you've made it available not only for yourself and others, but for the larger community. Dr. John Henry Clark, who was our mentor, and he said it best, that are we dealing with history, which is the unfolding of the human family, or are we dealing with his story? And we're stuck into his story. And at every era where there are changes, they don't last, because here they come the backlash, and they're going to be even greater. So we need to study this history. It's a fantastic history to see how crazy white folks are, and how and it's something that we have to deal with, because it's not going to change. You have the 1619 Project now. My nephew, Dr. Hassan, the professor, he's involved in that. And but Trump and his so-called colleagues have put up $4 billion to counteract it, not to complement it, and to explain why the system of white supremacy globally was established, and why it needs to be neutralized and destroyed. They want to hold up this thing of white supremacy, particularly around white male supremacy. But I just finished looking at myself doing a lecture, and in the Washington, D.C. area, and I said, well, damn, that's a young Dr. J. He never looked at a book. He held up. I mean, I said, ooh, I got to get a copy of that tape. But it is being shown, and it complements this analysis. My basic contention is that you have to have systems analysis. And that means you have to try to tap into some of that Jeffriesness, and you'll be dealing with the pyramidal structures. This is our sacred mission that ASCAC was able to take the Albany speech, where I made clear statement that we need to have real history and not the pseudo history that we have. But they took this and made it into the first of the critical commentaries, and they entitled it Our Sacred Mission. We have a sacred mission to destroy the system of white supremacy in all of its forms, but you have to put in place not a Negro system. That was survival. We have to have an African system. And so one of the places in America where that African system was taking root, and I'm talking modern era now, and Detroit has an unusual history. We got to get Michael Imhotep to do a history on the struggle for Blackness and African-centeredness and against white supremacy in Detroit. Detroit is an urban phenomena that needs to be studied from the first time people were planted in Detroit and through the historical eras. It's a fantastic. Detroit, the Motor City. What did that mean? That meant there was a new shift in the economy was going to take place, and whole new towns were going to be developed, and you were going to get Hamtramck and all these other towns, and that's where GM, Chrysler, a whole town, Dearborn, that's Ford. And then you have to see what Black folks were eliminated from. They needed us. We fought to get into the unions. Detroit has a story that has to be told in terms of urban development. And I would entitle it The New Renaissance Era. In other words, Detroit has these large skyscrapers on the border there, the border facing Canada, and it's called the Renaissance. but they weren't thinking about Renaissance African style. They were thinking about Renaissance in terms of European American style, because they had gone through the Depression. They had gone through after going through World War One, and then that after the Depression had subsided, they had a period of 10 years or so where there was this crazy spending and renewal, etc. But then Wall Street crashed, and then you had a whole nother thing. We need to study the history of white folks so we can understand the circumstances that black folks find themselves in. So I'm glad that we need to have Michael Imhotep spin off 1,000 of young Michael Imhoteps and spread them around, using Detroit as the mother nourisher. I mean, Detroit is a fantastic story, and the Renaissance that we really have to focus on is this Renaissance symbolized. That's why I jumped up to get the symbol. This is what African people worldwide have chosen as the symbol of what they are all about and what they have to be all about. It's the African Renaissance Memorial, commissioned by African leaders in the AU, led by President Wade of Senegal, but President Mbeki of South Africa, and 10 or so of the key ones were told to put together something that represents where we need to go and where we come from. And so this is the Renaissance monument that we need to parallel with the Renaissance structures that are in Detroit. And even though they weren't prepared in Detroit for us, it was to give the new white folks a new strength and a new control. Detroit is not going anywhere unless it's black population, African population, its mixed population goes with it. And so we need to let them know that Africans have declared to the world, and this is the Renaissance Monument. It's the largest statue of its kind. There's no man, it's larger than the Statue of Liberty. It's larger than Jesus the Redeemer overlooking Rio de Janeiro. But it's a live statue. In other words, it was commissioned and the Koreans designed it. And we have this whole thing, and still I rise. There's the black man rising, and God knows he needs to rise because he's been on his knees doing too much of the wrong things. And he needs to get up and stand up and be counted. And this is a monument to that black man, but he's not doing it by himself. He has his rock, the female principle. And there alongside the black man is the black woman. We need to, people have different sexual preferences. That's their business. But we've got to have a male and a female combination in order to produce the children. And who is in this picture? There's the black man holding his baby. Up to who? Not to the Europeans, where we usually look to sustenance. Not even east to Mecca. Not even south to the rest of the African world. That baby is pointing across the Atlantic Ocean to the African populations taken out of Africa and who have been firmed up in this furnace of death and destruction. And they have survived. And that child is an example of what we have to do. We don't have to do like Alex Haley and in Roots. And I worked with Alex Haley, had a $500,000 grant from the Carnegie Corporation to help him do Roots. But Alex Haley has this, Kunta Kinte is being held up and his father holding him up to God. We need to make that writ large, that we need to hold our children up to the Creator by whatever name we call him. We need to tell our children we are chosen to carry forth the human family and its great work. And so that is missing too often as we play with the history and don't get serious about it. This monument, you can take an elevator and going in the lobby and go up 16 stories past the black man's thighs and his strong backbone and into his mind. And 36 people can sit in the tower there. I was there with Mario Beatty, who is the president of our organization that we formed to deal with the now ASCAC, Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. But what is beautiful is that Cheikh Anta Diop's wife, a very powerful European that he married, and 4 or 5 boys that they had, the oldest one was Baki. Outside of this monument, they were able to take an exhibit of Sheikh Anta Diop's great work and all of the partners he had around the world, Fanon and the great leader of Martinique, and all of these, and Nkrumah and all, Du Bois. They were able to take all of that knowledge and put it inside the monument. There's no monument similar to this in the world, where the great knowledge that we've exposed is now there for everybody to tap into. And so that's why I'm saying that the way my brother Michael works, he works so quick and fast, he can mobilize. We need to have a copy of this monument somehow as a made for Detroit.
Yes. So you know what? So I'm sorry.
No.
I wanted to. I know, Michael, you sticking around, or you have to. What you have to do?
I can stick around for a few more minutes.
Okay. All right. Because I want to bring Dimitrius into this conversation about this urban crisis. So Dimitrius, can you just first tell us what you do, and then
Sure.
And then I'll ask you.
Sure, Felicia. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure and privilege to be sharing this session with some extremely intelligent and brilliant men that offer, and ladies that offer a phenomenal perspective. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but I did want to have a footnote to add about Detroit, in a lot of ways, being the beginning of the Black middle class, which was really spurred by the Great Migration. But to answer your question, Felicia, I work at First Independence Bank, and I serve as Executive Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer, and Chief Technology Officer of the bank. I wear a few hats. I have responsibility over retail banking, treasury management, HR, all of technology and external affairs, and being out and representing the community is something that I do enjoy doing. And we have a mission. The bank was stood up after the 1967 riots by a lot of business individuals, 20 or so individuals that really wanted to create a financial institution that would provide a means of financial independence for African Americans. And it was spurred by some of the same challenges going on then that do exist today. So I'll pause for your question.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that so First Independence Bank, they are featured in HAPI, and Ken Kelly, who is the president or CEO of First Independence Bank, is also a producer on HAPI, and yes, we interview him all throughout the film. And so it was really, it's so important when you start thinking about banking and an urban crisis, because at the end of the day, we need money. We need access to money.
Yes.
To have to be able to build. So can you just tell us a little bit about what do you think the role of a Black bank
Sure.
is
Sure.
in this urban crisis and getting us
I would say a Black-owned bank is really a means to provide a pathway to getting some form of wealth accumulation, wealth creation, to allow yourself to create and generate income and wealth that you can sustain and pass on to generations. We offer products that assist the non-bank, the underbanked. Some of our products are designed specifically for individuals that in the past that struggled with having a bank account, or our first-time individuals getting bank accounts. We offer a variety of other retail products, and we offer financial literacy sessions to help folks in our respective communities to learn about the advantages of and the benefits of what a savings account can do and how you can grow and earn money that way. While these are things that obviously some of the bigger banks do, we have a concerted effort to do financial literacy and really make this type of information available to people of our color, particularly a Black bank. There should be a level of comfort in dealing with folks that may look like you and offer products that really are going to benefit you and the community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yet, Chef Nezaa, I want to kind of bring you into the fold. First, tell everybody what you do. First,
Hi.
we'll start here.
So I guess Chef kind of gave it away. I'm a chef. I'm a chef and a community health educator, and I often really call myself. I feed the social activism. I feed the revolution. I try to uplift the community through nutrition, so we can do all this work that Michael and Dr. Jeffries and Brother Dimitrius was talking about. So I have a company that I always say that I cook to sustain us, like, because that's what food does. But really, we know that if you're having a cookout, people will come, and then once they're there, then my community health education piece comes in, because I do both. And the food is just a way to get people to have that conversation and to get them to start eating healthy food that doesn't taste like punishment, so that we can address some of these issues that we have in urban areas around food insecurity, and those types of, and getting access to healthy food. So that's kind of what I do.
That was going to be my next question, because you make a good point, is that we can't fight the revolution if we have diabetes, high blood pressure. And,
if we can't run.
We can't, yeah, like all those, we need really good nutrition and physical fitness. But can you talk to us a little bit about food deserts? Because
Yes.
I didn't even know that was a thing until until I live in Harlem, and I would just look at how far we had to go just to be able to get fresh fruits and vegetables. And,
so food desert came out as this catchy terminology that a lot of social activists, especially activism around food, started using, but it's really kind of like a misnomer. It doesn't tell the whole story. And if Brother Malik was on tonight, he would be a great person to segue into this conversation, because
yes,
he and other Black, African, and people of color activists have been renaming food deserts, really calling it food apartheid. And what that means is that, when you talk about a desert, that sounds like something that happens organically, right? Because that's how deserts usually form. So the reason it's a misnomer is because we know that food insecurity is part of what's in the arsenal of white supremacy. When you create urban neighborhoods where people can't move freely, they don't have access to transportation, they have environmental issues around land and all of that, then of course you have a food desert, but really it's caused by apartheid, by the structural racism, by policies, and those types of things that keep people from being able to access healthy food. So it's a bigger problem. It's not an organic problem. It's a man-made problem. It's a product of white supremacy, just like a lot of these other things are. And what better way to oppress people than to keep them from, having access to food that's going to nourish them? Kids are going to school in the morning, and you can see them standing at bus stops eating hot Cheetos. Well, we already know what's going to happen. They're going to school and they can't learn. So even though all these other things we talk about are important, really it all starts with how we're nurturing ourselves and how we're nurturing our families and our children. So it's I think food desert, that idea of food desert is kind of going out of style, because it really, like a lot of other things, it's another blame the victim type of terminology. When really we should be talking about food apartheid and talking about, and not just around not being able to access healthy food, but especially in communities of color. When we talk about health, we also have to talk about indigenous foods, right? We've been separated from our indigenous food, the food that our bodies still crave, because on a DNA level, we're Africans, even though we live in a cold climate, right? But we've adapted. If you live in this, I'm from Jamaica originally, so I grew up eating indigenous food. Even when I left and immigrated to Canada, that was still part of my diet in our household. Yes, because we're in another culture, there's always diffusion going on, and that's how food does, right? You try to find things that remind you of home, and when you can find those things, you eat them, and then other times you start enjoying things from other cultures. I think when I came to the States, particularly, I saw that I could identify some things that were traditional to our diets across the diaspora, but for the most part, a lot of illnesses like sickle cell anemia and things like that people are disproportionately get in America, you don't see them in those numbers in countries where Black people have access to indigenous foods. And when I'm talking about indigenous foods, I'm talking about yams. They actually isolated compounds from yams. No, I don't mean sweet potatoes because they're not yams. They reminded our ancestors of something they were missing, so they called them yams. But they're not really yams. I'm talking about the tubers that grow, and are eaten throughout the Caribbean, throughout Africa. There's compounds in them that actually help to protect our blood cells, to help us to be able to have those sickle cell shaped blood cells that protect us against malaria. When you eat the food, because nature is always trying to be in balance. So, okay, we have malaria, we eat this food, and it kind of gives you the protection without the harm. But I found that people weren't eating those type of things here. If I wanted to find yams, I had to go in a Latin American and Mexican foodway. And I found that when we talk about food deserts, it's a much bigger topic. It goes beyond that because it sounds so organic, like, oh, this just happened. But really, that separation from culture goes beyond, and it's something we never talk about. We don't talk about food and how that's used as a weapon, outside of the fact that we don't have access to healthy food, but also we don't have access to indigenous food, which also gives us protection in a whole multitude of ways.
And it's cultural.
Very cultural. And then it also food connects you to your culture. So if you strip away the food and the nutrition and everything, now you have an even bigger problem, right? That then translates to some of these other things that we put a lot of energy into talking about. So that's my contribution to the struggle. I think when I studied or found out about Black women that cooked during the civil rights movement, because as people traveled, they couldn't go into these restaurants. So you had homes that you could stop in, and they had those little shoe boxes with the food. And I started really identifying with that because 90% of my clients are social justice organizations, mainly people of color, not always, but mainly, and community. And I said, oh, I'm kind of like one of those people, There was a time when I did do that. When I did cook, people could come by my house and grab some food and leave. It was a way to take care of my family, and then it became a business. But even as that grew, the idea behind it, and the idea behind me at 40-something years old, going back to school to study anthropology and community health, I kind of married those two because I was really into history. I've been to Kemet with Dr. Ben. While I was there, I was noticing different foods and finding out where the origins of them were. In Jamaica, we drank sorrel. In Egypt, I was drinking kakaday, and I was like, oh, this is sorrel. I went back to school, as this middle-aged woman studying because I wanted to have a deeper conversation about food, and I wanted to prepare food and present food to the community in a different context about how really this is so important, because if we can't run, if we're sick and tired and all of that, we can't think, we can't create thinkers, we can't, our kids can't be educated. And if we can't do any of that, none of this other conversations we're having, all of that is moot. So I found that it was really very important, and I didn't find that we were having that conversation as much as we should.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, I saw you smiling many times when Chef Nezaa was talking. It's like you want to add something in there.
Chef Nezaa is great. I've had her food. She's here in Detroit. I've had her food a number of times at different events here. And yeah, you're dealing with the children being able to properly fuel themselves so they can learn, as opposed to eating junk food, going to school. And then we're dealing with food deserts here in Detroit, as well as other inner cities, metro areas, things like this. So yeah, and it has to be a multi-pronged approach to this. But we have to understand the role that nutrition plays, especially when it comes to fighting these various diseases, etc., diabetes, hypertension, things like this in the African American community, cancer. So understanding the role that proper nutrition plays in this, and then also having something that tastes good at the same time as well. So all this is definitely connected. She talked about the civil rights movement. Georgia Gilmore was an African American woman, African American female cook, who helped to feed the protesters during the Montgomery bus boycott. And Dr. King encouraged her to start a business. Okay. And she did. She was cooking at Holt Street Baptist Church. She was cooking fried chicken and sandwiches and things like this, and selling this and feeding the protesters during the Montgomery bus boycott. So we have this history of turning passion into a business as well, surrounding food. But we just want to make sure it's healthy food, because I've been to some soul food restaurants and I'm like, I'm looking, I'm like, wait a second. I remember I went to one that's where I live here, and I'm a vegetarian, so I thought I was safe ordering. I think I ordered sweet potatoes and greens, and there was sugar in the sweet potatoes and salt in the greens, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? So we have to understand that as well.
Yeah, there was a disturbing video that was going around on social media of them cooking sweet potatoes, and just they had pounds of sugar. They were just, it was literally like a big old sack of sugar. They were just pouring in as they're making these yams, sweet potatoes, and I was just like, what's going on over here?
Right,
so
right.
Very,
can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, what we call soul food, we think harks back to how we ate on the continent. We didn't need a lot of sugar on the continent.
Yeah.
But then, as someone who's also a student of anthropology and kind of approaches teaching health and nutrition from a psychological framework, actually, more so than you need to stop doing this and you're all killing yourself. I kind of approach it from a different way. I realize that the reason why a lot of the foods our ancestors during slavery and up to this time, things that we did, was from a psychological standpoint. If your life isn't very sweet, you tend to lean into sweets. Because a lot of times when I met people from the continent, various parts of the continent, they don't eat dessert. That's a new thing. That came in with colonialism. And they didn't eat a lot of sugar. They didn't do a lot of that. And their diet was mostly plant-based, because most of the societies were agrarian. There were some that people like the Maasai or whoever that ate a lot of meat. But for the most part, if you weren't doing animal husbandry on a large scale, most of your diet is going to be tubers, vegetables, beans, grains, those type of things. So our idea of soul food is really survival food, but I also tell people that we can't kind of like create this whole negativity around choices our ancestors made during a time when they were just trying to survive. What we can do is understand it. Like I teach a class where I ask people to go back and heal their ancestors by making different food choices now. Because a lot of times the reason why, especially in urban areas when you don't have access to healthier things, fresh fruits and vegetables, the reason why we make the choices we do is because for generations, that's how we've eaten. But then I asked them to go back beyond that and let's see, what do we then? They did a study where they took a group of African Americans. I forget who did the study, and they fed them traditional African food. that had been decolonialized, because that's a whole nother topic. But it had been decolonialized, meaning it was indigenous foods that they were used to eating. And then they took a group of Africans and fed them so-called soul food. And when they took their vitals and their numbers, well, what we think happened. The African American group that were eating traditional foods, their numbers got better. The Africans that were eating the soul food, the sweet potatoes with all that sugar and stuff in it, all that, their numbers became worse. So it just, that's deeper conversations we got to have around food. But one thing I don't do when I teach is because I remember being very young and first starting this, not really start, because I came up in a Seventh-day Adventist family that always revered healthy food anyway. But I remember being very judgmental about how we ate, and I don't call stuff slave food anymore. I call it survival food, because if they didn't survive, I wouldn't have been here. And I think when you start taking those words matter, taking those words out of it, then we can go back and heal our ancestors by making different choices, but also by understanding why they made those choices and unpacking that and understanding that sometimes it's not your DNA, but it's just that's what you've always known. That's what you always ate.
Yeah, no, I like that. Survival food. Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to to look at that and to start. Yeah, that's good. All right, Chef Nezaa. Dr. J.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sitting back enjoying. I'm getting an education. I thought at 85, I've absorbed everything that you can have, but no, the sister was educating us, and But look, can't we though at least get a slice of sweet potato pie? Don't tell nobody. Isn't there any type of nutrition in a little sweet potato pie?
Oh, for sure. The interesting thing is sweet potatoes are really good for diabetes.
Aye.
If you don't dump all that sugar, if you look at the sweet potato, it's shaped like your pancreas, which helps to regulate your insulin. And so, but when you dump all that sugar and stuff, additional sugar on it, then it becomes the cause of diabetes, right? Yeah. So a lot of times in my classes, I just teach how to reclaim our palates, because our palates have been bastardized by salt and sugar.
Yes.
Even to the point that when we eat fruit, we always want them to be super sweet, and we forget that there's other tastes that our body needs, like sour. And it was funny. I didn't realize any of that until I kind of moved outside of the communities that I grew up in, which was mainly Caribbean, where we embrace all the flavors. We have bitter things, sour things. And here, when I got here, it was all sweet and salt. Right. So our livers suffer and all of that. And so when you eat a sweet potato in its natural state, which is very sweet, but it's a different kind. It reacts differently on your body. But when you've for generations been dumping a ton of sugar on it in reaction to your circumstance in life and wanting to sweeten that, then you bastardize your taste, and you feel like it has to taste like it had a pound of sugar in there for it to taste sweet when it's naturally sweet in the first place.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes I'll be eating something and someone else will eat it. And they're like, how can you eat it? It's so, this is so sugary. And I'm like, it's not, but and that's when I know I have to check myself, and I have to, I have to stop so I can return. So my taste buds can just return back to normal, Yeah.
And my partner for life, she can't look at these sweet things that I look at. And she's got her vegetables and her juices, and so it makes me feel bad. Don't tell nobody. The world will know that Dr. J got caught on the sugar thing, but he got off, and he got off that train. And then his wife Rosin, she prepares. It's a scientific process, chemical and chemistry, and all the rest of that's mixing. So I've been blessed to be hanging around those who are seriously interested in eating proper, because if you don't eat proper, your thinking proficiencies are lost. you won't be able to have that sharpness that you have. And speaking about all of that, I would be remiss if I didn't take this large volume here that we could use, like Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power. I tell my students, you can't read it, but take it on a subway just in case somebody's messing with you. You can sock them across the head. But this is a great work that Dr. Rosalind Jeffries contributed to with Dr. Malefi Asante. And as you saw, my brother Michael going so fast through the history, and then Dr. J wants to go deep. But these are not people that are in a PhD program. These are ordinary Black folks trying to get the knowledge. And our sister says, well, the food also affects how we think. The brother said, we got to save money. That's been the biggest thing of Black folks, saving money for the real deal. But this is a classic text, African American History, A Journey of Liberation. This is the second edition. And of course, on the cover, we've got our heroines and our heroes, Harriet Tubman, Frederick, and Martin King. And then, of course, over here, you have on the backside, there's Marcus Messiah Garvey, our brother who brought Pan-Africanism worldwide to us, and then W.E.B. Du Bois. And they had Malcolm's picture. In one of these editions, they did put Malcolm's picture in it. But it has the information that we're talking about. As Michael went through all those historical periods and the post-Reconstruction, Reconstruction, and what Thomas Jefferson and the so-called Confederacy was really all about. And so this, I've never run into a book that's more important than this to provide the information, the data, the lesson plans. And so this is what we needed when Detroit was one of the real energy centers for African-centered education. We would go to the Corbo Center, and there would be Joe Louis welcoming us to the Corbo Center and inspiring us to make sure we do some heavy fighting like Joe Louis. But we had 3,000 people inside, educators that had come from around the country to try to deal with African-centered education. So Detroit took the lead in developing many of those schools. Well, of course, that would mean that Detroit was going to be victimized and going to be under attack. And so that we have to really understand, when we find a breakthrough and when we find something important, and white folks realize that it's going to aid our struggle, watch for the subversions to come in, our own people there who might be turning it against us. But we're on a victorious path. And as Dr. Clark says, Dr. Jeffries put a deep analysis about these Europeans we have to deal with. Dr. Jeffries just gives it a nice sweeping phrase. The Europeans come out of the caves of Europe and they were in trouble because they came out land poor, resource poor, and people poor. And that's why they have to blood suck on everybody else, on other people, particularly the people of the sun, who have a serious African background and influence. So we will be there. I'll be there, me and my books and whatnot. The master's essay the master's essay I did on the Senegal 4-year development plan. And but my honors essay in undergraduate work was the urban crisis. And so that meant one of the areas I was really interested in was my urban community. That was Newark, New Jersey. But then other urban communities were very important. Cleveland, Akron was one, and Detroit was definitely at the center, along with Chicago and whatnot. So we need to have our young people know that there's some deep work that needs to be done. And it is being done. I look forward to coming into Detroit, and I was with our brother Charles in the New York meeting with African leaders just this past a couple of days. But I'm looking forward to, when I did my early 58 study, I was in Detroit. And that's when I went to one section of Detroit where they had these row houses, and there was a mobile unit outside of that, and that was Dr. Wright. Dr. Wright was not only going to be a medical doctor and heal with his expertise, but he was going to be a sociological doctor, a W.E.B. Du Bois, if you will, by putting that history out. And that history eventually, from that van, eventually became one of the most important library centers we have in the United States. And Black folks need to fight to make sure they keep it and they claim it. It's really not just a library, it's in the best African tradition. It's a temple of learning, a temple of spiritual development. And so any renewal that can be made in terms of that library, I certainly would want to help support and help some of my multimillionaire relatives that are doing fine. I can't complain. My people take care of business. But we need a project or something, I'm going to call it the New Renaissance Project for that Detroit museum, and get some of these Jeffries millionaires. Don't tell nobody I'm talking about them, although some of them going to get the message. You know, they were told, he didn't leave no names, but I can leave some big names of these brothers who have done well. There's a family in Atlanta, the Bronners. I mean, they have done so well with their wealth that the hundreds of Bronner kids coming through the families have their tuitions already paid for Morehouse and Spelman and Atlanta U. So you can make the money, but don't spend it and waste it on show. Put it back in your communities. And so I hope that when I get out to Detroit on Sunday, I'll be able to say, there's a negative side, and you can focus on it, and you can drown yourself in it. But there's a positive side. There's a resurrection. African people have come out of death and destruction, the worst type of brutalization, mental slavery. And so we have to put that Renaissance component together, particularly in these urban areas where we have concentrated peoples and concentrated resources and concentrated potential. So I'm giving my wife a shout out for her great work. And because I got to live with her, I've tried to do the best I could for the last 50 something years. And whatever few years we have left, I want to do even better. As the President of the United States would say, more better. And so that we can find our way.
Yeah. Hey, Katrina. I mean, not Katrina. What am I thinking? Felicia. Felicia. I'm monitoring two broadcasts, so Katrina posted on the other one. I got to get out of here. I had to get ready for my show at 11. Okay. And you're on my show at 11. Yes, so just very quickly, everybody tune into the African History Network show tonight, 11 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. Visit my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. The information is there, how to listen. Also, follow me on Facebook, The African History Network on Facebook, and Michael Imhotep on YouTube, IMHOTEP. And I look forward to seeing you, Felicia, and Dr. J here in Detroit. Nezaa is already here in Detroit. Also, all of my DVD lectures and my online classes are at my website as well, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com.
Okay, we need to trade some of that stuff that you've done and some of the stuff that I and my partners have done. This is Dr. Clark's great work, Africans at the Crossroads.
Yes.
For an African Revolution. I know you got it.
Africans at the Crossroads, yes. Yeah,
okay.
and actually Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, I use that in my in one of my online classes as well.
Okay.
Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism.
Yes. And I'll have a little something to say about that when we have a chance to talk, because Dr. Clark, he knows how to direct you. And he said, I need you. I'm doing something on Christopher Columbus. I need you to put in your component to it. And so,
right.
But these are the books that are available, brothers and sisters, and their life.
This is it right here.
That's right. And he purposely put me in as an intro because he, as a historian, had what he called a 500-year cycle of history. Myself, as a political scientist, had what I call the 50-year turning points of history. And so he just made our thing complementary, forced it to happen.
Absolutely. I think he froze
That's
up.
the way a real African.
Okay, Hotep family, I have to get out of here, okay? All right, peace. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey everyone. So this is just a quick little note. if everyone could please like and share and comment on this video. It's very important because, you know, we got to break this algorithm. And a way to do that is by you liking the video, sharing it to at least 3 other people so that more people can see it and get this word out. You know, we've been maybe an hour in and we've learned so many new terms, so many things. And so it's very important that we share this with the community. Please like and share this video. Make sure that you are following us on our social media, on all our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at hapifilm. This hapifilm. That's how you find us. Make sure that you're following us and make sure that you're signed up for that newsletter. Very, very important. The screening that we are doing in Detroit, right there, is at the Charles Wright Museum. It's 3 p.m. this Sunday, and then following it, we're going to have a dynamic panel. Chef Nezaa is coming back. Dimitrius Hutcherson from First Independence Bank. We have Dr. Ken Harris, Malik Yakini from is it D Farms? It's D Farms.
D-Town Farms or
D-Town
Detroit
Farms.
Black Food Security Network.
Yes,
which runs D-Town Farms. Yeah.
Yeah, y'all need to Google him. I was like, oh my God, like you guys are really doing some stuff in Detroit.
Yeah.
And then
they grow food that I cook.
See, that's sustainable right there.
Yeah.
And then we have Dr. J, who's going to get on the plane and hang out with us in Detroit to be part of the panel. So it's going to be a fun time. Make sure you get your tickets. You don't want to wait till the last minute. September 26th, Sunday, 3 p.m. All right. So, Dr. J, I got a question for you. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yay.
Well, with my wife, you can ask me anything. You can get anything. I'll give you the shirt off my back because you are a blessing beyond blessing. Hey, and take care of those little fellows you got. As I told you, if they ever get too difficult, you know I got my thing downstairs, my little whip, to keep these young people straight and the straight and narrow.
Yes, you did tell me that, Dr. J. Because you didn't quite answer my first question because I just want to just give us some more like concrete history about the urban plan. So what was the national plan for urban development in the United States, and when did this occur? Like, what was the plan initially?
Well, cities don't spring up by themselves. A number of them have, but after World War II, it was clear that you had to plan city development. And because we were the engine for the world in order to destroy fascism and Nazism, our cities had just grown up with no plan, etc. But then when they started planning after World War II, these large cities, they had a problem of whether you should integrate Black people in the urban mix or whether you should segregate them. And unfortunately, that segregation mentality is so deep in American culture that even with the prosperity of us being the engine of the world and all the development taking place, they still had that, we got to keep them separated. The Africans were given hand-me-down housing. I looked at this thing at my year-long study, well, for 2 years. I looked at this thing, and you could go into each urban area and see how they were building highways out to the suburbs so that these new housing estates could be built for these white folks to go in, subsidize. In other words, and then they lock Black folks into the old housing. And so that city after city, that's what I was studying. I called the metropolitan segregation was the term I used. And Detroit became an example of that. Detroit has what they call the 8 Mile, that band around the city. White folks were out there. Black folks were given the possibility of purchasing homes within the 8 Mile process. Newark, New Jersey, they tore down 1,000 white homes, a very middle class homes, in order to build a way going out to clear the way for white folks to move further out. It is a reality that we need, that these white folks, no matter how and where they are, they come up with a trick on us. We can call it the Tulsa Wall Street situation, but no, you can go to every urban area and see the same process taking place. Tulsa was just a riveting example because it was caught on tape and it was clearly on African peoples. But they did that all over that was the urban process. I call it metropolitan segregation. And so I'll have some material on that when I get. I like Detroit because they have so many highways and byways. They even anticipated my greatness. And so you got the Jeffries Boulevard out there in Detroit or somewhere. I say, hey, go on. They understand. It's one of the super highways in Detroit. But it's amazing that this process, they needed us in a foxhole with them to destroy the Nazis, but they did not want to live near us. It was a psychology thing. Black folks with more education, more control over their communities, white folks would rather push them out into the wastelands or lock them into urban ghettos than to share the so-called American dream of us living together and sharing together. So that's why we have to have our own plan. You need an for each large American city and then the small American cities. And since we have African people running the governments in the main, we have to put pressure on them because some of them get into positions and then they're brought off. But we need to have a government that has an economic, political, and cultural plan for its Black population. And we don't have to apologize. Reparations is owed. Detroit is the reparations capital. A great deal of work was done in Detroit. Conyers, the symbol of the reparation struggle. But it's deeper than that. It goes culturally deep. That white folks, when I was in Baltimore, and there was a whole section of northern Baltimore around the Mondorman shopping plaza. And what white folks did was, and they would live in these row houses in Baltimore. And but when out by the Mondorman Center, they were building these wonderful homes for the middle class. And so I'd be on a street in Baltimore and I'm studying this community, and these signs, I walk for block after block, and there's these 30 orange signs. And the orange sign said, I don't want to say the N-word, the orange sign said, they're coming. And if you don't get your white asses out of here as soon as possible, they're going to be there next to your daughter and playing with your children. And so it was a tactic used to clear white folks out as soon as possible and put them further out in the suburbs. And then Black folks said, well, we can't let these houses go to waste. They're better than what we had before moving in. There's a whole pattern. You could see that. And so we have to be aware. We have to keep our eye on white folks because even the best of them got real problems. And these programs were put together by the best of them. Franklin, Delano, Roosevelt. If it wasn't for his wife, Mrs. Roosevelt, she was the one that really fought for Blacks. Franklin, our great leader, he was interested in taking care of white folks. Same thing with others, like the Kennedys. We must fall in love with the Kennedys. Kennedy, he's going to do this, and the Kennedys going to figure out how to keep as much power in their hands and for the super rich. And the Kennedys are an example of that process. If Kennedy could have not help Blacks and do this and that, his brother had to tell him, look, pressure is coming on us, Robert Kennedy. And so we just had a big activity in the downtown Brooklyn. And that center, the Kennedys financed so they could get the Black vote in Brooklyn. And so can we use that as a base for a African Renaissance, a renewal? The African Art Museum will go there. other activities will go there. And so we got to have our plan. If you don't plan, you plan to fail. And that's why every one of us should have that big Amos Wilson book, Blueprint for Black Power. And you got to have a plan. Otherwise, you'll just be hanging in the bridge and in the breeze. Now, I was in Atlanta for my nephew's graduation, and it rained, so I got there a little late. The graduation was over. And so I was trying to figure out what to do. The people have left, and I'm standing on a corner near Morehouse, and here comes a black man who was a street man. And he said, "Hello, brother." I said, "Well, how are you doing?" And he said, what did I say? What did he say? He took one of my sayings from one of my, in other words, resource poor, weapons poor, whatever poor. A statement I had made on a street person had in his consciousness and recognized me. And then he said, well, the graduation has left. They're all at the park where they're having the affair. And so he sent me down the right road to go to the park and join my nephew. So put this knowledge out there. It can service our babies. It can service our young people. It can service our homeless. It can service those of us who have gone way up on the ladder and we think we're there. It'll let them know that they'll turn around and you may think you got it, but they'll shake your tree and then all your apples are on the ground, and what you thought you might have for the future, you don't have. We have to come together as a family, a global African family, and make it work.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. I want to thank everybody that's in the super chat. Dennis Boatwright. We met this brother down at the African Street Festival, Dr. J. He came from Detroit. He had, he brought his whole entire beautiful family down, but he's working on a book about John Henry Clark. But he's from Detroit, and he's really been in this chat all, giving everybody shout out. So thank you, Dennis. But I want to thank Dennis, Sidney Jones, Dr. Patah, Dwayne Johnson, for your contributions to our super chat. And let me tell you, let me just take a quick little moment. When you guys donate to us, okay, it is so important because it helps to move the HAPI train, okay? We have people that are working with us because we cannot do anything by ourselves, and we need a team of people to do anything. You need a team of people because if it's just one person, you're going to be ran out, and then whatever you're doing is going to be gone because you done already passed out because it's too much work. So we are, employing people, and we are very appreciative of any type of finance, donations, to the Cash App, anything that you guys give us, because we put those right back into the community, and we are, servicing people that look like us. So it's very important for you guys when you are contributing to us, know that the monies are staying within the family, and it's helping to get the word out. So feel free, you can go to our Cash App and show us some HAPI love right there. Like I said, the super chat, you can go to our website, you can donate. Or if you see us on the street, just give us money and we'll do the right thing with it. Okay. Either way, we'll take it. All right. So Chef Nezaa, because this is so, you're bringing a whole different, not even a whole different, but just a different perspective to this urban crisis. So what are some things what are some specific things that we can do, in our communities, to help push this along in terms of nutrition, and creating places where we can have good, where it's not just, where it's almost policy. It's not just, something that we're talking about doing, but it's more like in policy, like in our schools and, just in our communities. What are some things we could do?
Yeah, exactly. I keep referring to Malik. That's my brother. My kids went to Enslavement Institute, graduated from there. At one time, I cooked for the students, and it was policy. Because a lot of times when we think of policy, we keep thinking that we're waiting on oppressors to make policies that's going to help and heal us, when we have to take agency and create our own policies that service our communities. We have that power, right? And so one of the things that Malik did at Ensoroma was we have policies around food. I started a organization to mobilize parents around why to empower and educate parents around health and nutrition so that they then wouldn't push back against some of the policies around food and what kids could bring to school and what they couldn't. Or when I prepared lunch for the children in the school, there was a lot of things that they were used to eating that weren't a part of that. But, so I said, okay, if we're going to do that, parent meetings, all of that, let's have healthy food. Let's start talking about food with the parents so that the children will be more inclined to eat this. And what happened was that there were children who hadn't signed up for like a school lunch program that started throwing their lunches in the trash so they could eat what I cooked because it was good. They would tell me at the beginning, Mama Nezaa, I don't, that's what they call it. Mama Nezaa, I don't eat vegetables. And then next thing I know, they're eating vegetables. There was this one young man that was in my son's class who lost like all this weight because he was hanging out with my son and he started making different choices around what he ate, and he was eating food that I was cooking. He was coming to me, asking me for recipes. And his grandmother came up to me and she said, she was his caretaker. My grandson is driving me nuts. He's telling me that you can't buy this and that anymore. You have to go to the health food store. That was because of a policy that was put in place as part of the curriculum in the school because it was a holistic environment. And because all the kids were under that policy, then they became, it didn't seem so strange. It was like just a normal part. I did a paper when I was in college. I was taking a class, the sociology of urban health, and I was living in a neighborhood that was getting gentrified. And so I had to come up with a topic, and I wanted to see if in urban communities that were being gentrified and bringing in new resources, right? Especially resources around health and wellness, like gyms and parks and those type of things. Did that change the outcome of health for the people that always lived there that didn't have those things? And found out that it didn't. Because even though the communities were being gentrified and they were bringing in those resources, it was still really two separate communities just living across the street from each other. And so we can create those resources for ourselves and our communities. It doesn't have to take like a policy from city government or a whole ton of money. We can create walking clubs. We can create, whether it's in the schools or outside churches. Churches are a great place. You go to a funeral and the same food that killed the person at the funeral is served at the repast. Right? So churches can start, and I was a member of the Shrine of Black Madonna, and I was able to get a program through Blue Cross called Your Journey to Wellness, which I've kind of co-opted, and I'm doing Your Wellness Journey. But they came into the church, and for a 6-week program, after church every Sunday, we had speakers come in and talk about health and wellness. They had resources, and we got resources such as going to being able to go to the gym for a month, not having to pay. And it changed the trajectory of how people looked at health in the church. So churches are really important. You don't have to wait for some decree to come down from somebody who's not really interested in just interested in keeping you healthy enough so you can be part of the workforce, right? So that stuff, it's a lot that we can do. A lot of times we bemoan things and we look at what's not right as opposed to look at being, as Mama Hanifa from Ensoroma says, being a solutionary. So those are some of the things. Malik started the farm. It started as a part of the curriculum at the school, and out of that grew a garden, and out of the garden grew a farm, and out of the farm now there's going to be a co-op. I'm actually right now building. I'm part of a development that's called Love Campus. It's going to be, I think, one of the second campuses in the country that's a social justice campus. So it's mostly people of color. All the nonprofits that's on the campus are going to are people like Detroit Justice Center, who's working for prison reform, Detroit Mobility, Detroit Narrative Agency, and those are all my clients. So I'm building a deli and a marketplace that's going to feed them. We're doing a community benefits agreement. So instead of it just being a place to go get it's mostly plant-based, but not all. But instead of just being a place to go get a vegan burger, we're going to have classes on health and wellness and cooking classes and an outdoor farmers market. And if anyone want to help with that project, if you go to my website, you'll see more about it. But it's patronously.com/paradise. We're trying to raise funds. It's a $500,000 project to bring this to the community. So instead of me just coming in extracting from the community, we're building a deli that's going to empower the community, create jobs around wellness, train young chefs to learn how to take their grandmama's sweet potato pie recipe and replace some of that sugar with some, more natural sugars or whatever. They'll enhance their health instead of degrading it. So it's a lot we can do. A lot of times we just get stuck in the whole idea of victimization. But how, as Karen Hunter says, how does that free us?
Yeah. Can you your website? Can you put that in the private chat so I can put that up for everyone? Type that in for us because a couple people are asking about it. One of the things I thought that that you said that I think that a lot of times people forget when you were talking about you had the kids eating certain foods, but you were like you had to get the parents to come along with it so that it would be supported. But sometimes I think it's a Western type of way to just kind of concentrate on one group of people. And so it's very African mind. I mean, I'm not the African specialist, Dr. J is, but it feels very African when you involve the whole entire family in things. And
and to tell you the truth, it's a marketing strategy. If you want parents to buy into anything, you first educate the kids about it. When marketers want to sell toys around the holidays, they market it to the kids, and the kids make their parents. Like the grandparent came and said to me, "My grandson is forcing me to now go buy these healthy products," right? And so by then, first you educate the kid. You would think it was the other way around. You educate the parents. No, you educate the kids, and the kids educate the parents. Because they're really going to do what the parents say. And the kids that were throwing their lunch in the garbage can, the parents would then get a bill for lunch, and they're like, "Why am I getting this bill? I sent them to school with food." And they're like, "Oh, they didn't have any food." And then come to find out they were throwing them away so they could eat, because we're going to feed them regardless. And so now the parents are, okay, if they're going to throw the food away, maybe I should just pay for them to have lunch. So now you have a whole generation of kids that came out of that school that now are past. Now I see them with their kids, and their kids are being raised in a healthier environment, food secure, no matter where they live. If they live in so-called food deserts, they go outside of that to get food, whether it's farmers markets or going to D-Town Farms to get, on Sundays when you can get organic kale and collards and stuff for $1 a pound, as opposed to going in the regular store and paying $3 a pound. So yeah, it's kind of like sometimes you have to use some modern technique. You have to take from the oppressor. They study us, we have to study them, and things that work. Like, how do you get a people to do X? Oh, okay, let's reverse engineer that, except let's now use those same marketing skills and tactics to get people to do the opposite. But like I said, what I do is I try not to berate people and beat them up over the head and tell them great grandmama was trying to kill them with her sweet potato pie. Great grandmother was trying to survive, and her life might not have been so sweet, and that's why. So now you look at that in a whole nother more loving and empowering way, and then we go back and heal that by healing the family soul by making different choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's yeah. So Dr. J, since you are the system analysis man. Okay. Can you just look at Detroit in terms of systems analysis?
Certainly. Planning is the key. as our sister was saying, even when what you eat, you have to plan and have to know what the reaction is going to be. I have in my hand a paper that I presented in my first at Columbia University to do a study on Africa. And it was on a class called the Government Sociology Seminar, Thursdays on 1962. I hate to age myself, but this 1960, that's kind of embarrassing that I'm still hanging on after all of that. But what were we talking about? Economic planning, a precondition for Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was born decades of concept among Black people in an age of rampant nationalism. It manifests itself as the desire for a more modern Black super state. However, no effective modern development in Africa can be based on the existing traditional and neo-colonial political, social, and economic structures. There must be a far-reaching transformation of African society. Without this transformation, Pan-Africanism, or more specifically, a federation of West Africa and or East Africa, become a powerful modern state. Most African leaders agree that this transformation is needed, but as yet there has been no significant agreement to motivate positive practical measures. Everyone talks about Pan-Africanism and African unity, but no one has come forth with realistic steps or proposals to cement the bonds between the growing number of independent African states. And so we can apply that to our American urban population. The Black populations are growing and in each of the urban areas, the West Coast, from the north to the south. And for these urban areas to work with the coming in of new populations, with the needs of the existing populations, we have to have a plan. And so I'm glad that that's been a part of my thinking since I was a youngster. I could see the change and transformations in the urban areas, but most of it was done with the idea of creating a comfortable niche for white people, just like Ford built his plant in Dearborn, and that became an attractive point for people coming from the Middle East. And also it became a point at which Blacks were pushed back. They had to fight, organize the unions, and then get those jobs. And so planning becomes key. Everybody else has a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you suffer. And reparations, for example, when we raise the question of reparation, everybody gets reparations, but they don't expect Black folks to get reparations, even though it's a part of the reality in the Middle East. Egypt and Ethiopia every year get millions and billions of dollars in reparations. But when we raise the reparations, it's not possible. And so we have to see these contradictions because we need to claim the cities, reframe the cities, and reconstruct a New World African. We're proud to say, as my wife has been in this work, put the African in the picture here, a textbook with the great African leader. This is Queen T, the mother of Akhenaten. And then I raise Akhenaten because, yes, because they actually have a history where the conquest outside of Africa by Thutmose III brought in gold and other precious metals that threw the balance of spirituality off in the Nile. And so Queen T, and I have to give credit to Brother Taki because he was able to take me into Nubia. And this woman, one of the greatest women in the history of the world, sat on the throne of Egypt with her great husband, Amenhotep III, and produced a son, the Pharaoh Akhenaten. And they had this concept of renewal. So they built a new city of God. And that new city of God is there for us to see. But they took the old powers that removed this new power, took every brick of the new city of God and put it in the renewal of the ancient structures. So there's an interplay of the new city and the old city now to bring it to modern development. Houphouët-Boigny, the president of the Ivory Coast, he was influenced by the Pharaoh Akhenaten and Queen T, and he built a new city of God for his new nation. Kwame Nkrumah, one of our great leaders living next door, he also, because he came to America, he got trained at Lincoln University, and then he went back to realize his dreams in Ghana. And he was looking to build a new city of God in his own way in terms of his belief in Pan-Africanism and socialism and rest. But he was inspired by someone called Gamal Nasser, who in 1952, Gamal became a revolutionary force in the Egyptian army that threw out King Farouk and the old traditions coming from the Middle East. And they established a new frame of development for Egypt. And it was around a dam. The Aswan Dam became the new city. And that inspired Nkrumah to come up with a dam, which became the great dam that provides the industrial power for Ghana. So we need to see these phases in history and see where economics power, and we need to have them in our own family, extended families, our neighborhood families, economics, politics, and culture, making it work for us. Yeah. So I'm glad that they were able to expand it, to bring in the economics, the health, bring in the investment, and so to bring a banker, and then to bring in a young brother like Michael. And so, hey, you've done it again. So you can have that smile of contentment and that
no, you know what? No, Dr. Jackie,
smile of doing it the right thing. It's wonderful. Hey, no, you don't need all this.
No, I keep telling you, it's not me. I am moving. I'm so happy and blessed to be in this space and time right now, you know, and I'm only moving because ancestors are pushing me this way. You know, yes. Taki and I don't know nothing. We just follow what they say. That's it. That's it. That's it. You know, and we're so blessed to be around people like you, and just to be able to sit down like with you, Chef Nezaa. I mean, like you know, I'm like, oh, you got to come back on and really break down some of these other things that you said that was a different conversation. We need for you to come on back and have that conversation, because this is so, you're so right. Like, we really can't move and do some of these other things, you know. And I look at Dr. J, you're 85. You and your wife be getting it in. And so when you're talking about this, this ideal of nutrition, you know, you guys must figured out something because the way you be dashing around, you know, hopping on planes, going to HAPI screenings that's happening this Sunday at the Charles Wright Museum at 3 p.m., you know, you're doing something right with your nutrition. So, you know, it's very, you know,
and Ralston would go. I would most likely go with her and have her come to Detroit. That'll be our chance to get out a little bit. But she's got a big women's activity. She on Sunday, so that we stay busy. Because see, if you keep one step ahead of the devil, you're on a good way. And then if you get some smarts, you can learn to trick them up. And then my wife will say, "Don't worry about it, just hang on to that African Holy Ghost, and you'll be able to continue to do great things." So I want to thank you and Taki. Taki gave me an experience, a pilgrimage with him and his friend Rusty, and that was just a blessing to be able to go through the Nile, where you didn't have to worry about a group, you didn't have to worry about watching out for people, you didn't have to tell the women, don't go into this Arab store, and don't go into the back where he got some special things to sell for you because something may happen. So maintain. So for me to go with him, and we went into the great temples and whatnot. Oh my goodness, I have never been the same. I thought I had a serious experience in life, but once I went to the Nile and went to Nubia and to the Holy Mount, and I said, goodness, I got to share this. And then with HAPI coming along, everybody is sharing it. It's a magnificent thing. This happiest thing is real.
Yes, and you know, and
learn to connect it. You know, I just wanted to say they need to learn to connect it. It's not some far out fantasy. Washington, D.C. is the new city of God. It was designed by an African man who was an astronomer, Benjamin Banneker, because the Frenchmen left because these Americans were too worried about their profits and not about this sacred city. And they had to take out of the mind of this African man, Benjamin Banneker, he rewrote the plans. Since the significance of the square and the iconography of the Nile Valley, that Washington Monument is not just there because it looks good to have it. It's a symbol of rebirth and resurrection that comes directly out of our traditions. So we need to take it and make it work for us. Take that knowledge, take that truth, and make it work for us.
Yes.
And that's what's happening.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, I just wanted to share this because we were so happy to be in one of the papers in Detroit, the downtown Monitor. And, you know, and this is, you know, this already went to press. And then we found out later that Dr. J was going to be on there, or your picture would be there, Dr. J. But don't worry, we got you. We're going to put you in something.
No, those are my partners. Those are my partners. Goodness.
Yes.
Brother Small, you don't get a better partner. And our economist, she has done her job, and she stands for. And then Pat Newton, Patricia Newton segment. She was made a chief, not the female queen mother. She was made a queen mother and a chief because she was so wonderful in relating to the Africans in Ghana. And of course, our brother, he's got his show. No, this is a group that I'm glad to hang on their coattails.
Yes. And there's our panel. There's our panel. There's Chef Nezaa right there, Dr. Ken Harris, Dimitrius Hutcherson, and Malik Yakini, which we keep referring to. So it's going to be a very good panel, along with our brother Taki Grant will be on the panel as well as writer, director, and producer of HAPI. And Michael Imhotep is going to host it.
Wow,
so
that's wonderful.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I thank you guys for just being part of it and spending your evening, because I know, you know, that you guys are busy. I know Chef Nezaa, you had, you know, things you had to do, but you made time for us. So we really appreciate that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. You have any closing things you want to say?
Oh, me? Oh, yeah. I'm just, I'm just really happy to be a part of it. And I'm, you know, to be a part of this, because like I said, for you to ask me on as a chef, I think is a way to really educate people about food and how it plays a part in all this. Because that's a conversation, like I said, that we don't usually have. We talk about nutrition and health as if it's some separate thing, when it's the foundation of everything we're trying to do in the movement. And the more I learn about that, you know, even learn about the women in the South who cooked and fed the marchers and the protesters and all of that. It's kind of like the musicians that made the songs during the civil rights movement that kept people going. You know, we've always known people that's like entrenched in the movement, that it's been a very holistic experience, you know, and that's how African people kind of move. We don't compartmentalize things. We try to figure out how things kind of move together. And so I was really happy for you to have me on to interject that into the conversation, you know, about how food is a part of that, not just about the health but also the economy of our communities.
Yeah. I want to just take this time to personally or publicly thank Nubia, who is in the chat right now, because let me tell you, Nubia has hooked us up. Nubia hooked us up with Dr. Solange Ashby for our film HAPI. And when we were coming to Detroit, Taki's like, call Nubia. We called Nubia. Nubia's like, okay, this is who you need to have. And so she was like, Chef Nezaa, spell it. This is how you spell it. So I want to thank Nubia for definitely supporting us. And I know I will get a chance to meet her in person. This is going to be so great because a lot of times we've been chatting with people and we haven't been able to see any of these people. We just see them online. And so this would be a great time for us to get out and see folks on Sunday.
It'll be great to see Dr. Jeffries again. Dr. Jeffries, you remember Quadro from Detroit with the Melanin Conference?
No, I don't remember no Quadro. I remember my brother, my big brother.
With the Melanin Conference.
With the Melanin Conference.
Yeah, I helped him do the last one. I worked on that for a year, so I remember talking to you and you coming to Detroit. Yeah, I just wanted to make that association. That was my big brother too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he's an ancestor.
Yes. And then we had so many strong associations out of Detroit. And Chukwe Lumumba, again, is one of these brothers who, of course, you had the whole 5 states that's supposed to be a part of the nation and all of that. But Chukwe brought his powerful self, planted himself in the South, brought down some partners, and then he left us. He joined the ancestors. But then here, his son
and his daughter too. Both of them are powerful.
Steps into his and to continue. The mayor of Alabama now is the son, and he's close to Raz Baraka, who is the son of Amiri Baraka.
Right.
And then my nephew, Congressman Hakeem, is a partner with them. So last year or so, they had a meeting in which all 3 of them were together and being honored. So when you get generations upon generations passing the torch and doing great things, you have to give thanks. And so I do.
Yeah.
I saw that. I just wanted to give a quick little shout outs in the chat. I see Michael Friend, who is the creator of Soul Emotion Players, which is this African drumming dancing group. It's been around for 40 plus years. He's based out in Maryland. And actually, I had my first acting job with them. So I love Michael to pieces. And yes, he's like, is the HAPI movement coming to Maryland? We're coming to DC. We're coming to DC on December 5th. And Anthony Browder will be heading our panel discussion after the screening. And just to let you guys know, in a couple of weeks, October 23rd, we will be in Atlanta. And then on the 30th, we'll be in Philly. The 6th of November, we will be in Houston. Then we're going to head to DC on 12/5, December 5th. And on the 18th, we'll be in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So if you want us to come to your city, you need to DM us. We are actively, trying to find theaters to make this happen. So please, please make sure that you support us in any way that you can. And if we're not coming to you, you can go to hapifilm.com and download the DVD. I mean, you're not going to get the beautiful panels. I'm just saying, because we're not going to stream these panels. It's like if you got to be there to be able to take part of it. But it's going to be fabulous, and we really thank you guys for supporting us. Yeah, Dr. J, you have
and there are a number of months that have to come. Now, our sister Felicia and our great brother Taki, they can move around now because you got super jets. In the old days, the covered wagons wouldn't have gotten you to cover so much territory. But I have to. There's a brother, Chris White. That's one of my adopted sons. And the word got to go out that I'll be in his Detroit and we'll be running around talking much mess. And then I got relatives in Detroit. I got to call them and tell them, bring the whole crew. And so that it'll be a famous family affair that we will be able to connect and make work for us and our people. As Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom yet deprecate agitation are men, and we can say women, who want the crops without plowing up the ground. They want the rain without the thunder and lightning. This struggle may be a moral one or it may be a political one, but it must. Charles, Felicia wants to finish up. I don't have to get it exactly right. I appreciate all the work that you do. I'm trying to end it off, and he trying to correct me on a few. And say I take the history and whatnot, and I present it the way I want to present it, whether I'm doing it exactly like it is or exactly like it was. And we have to thank Charles because he's into the technology, and my wife is too. But Charles knows how to move here and move there and get things happen. So he's taking his beating like a man. Every once in a while you have to let young men know that the elders. Can you imagine me interrupting Dr. John Henry Clark or Dr. Ben and say that you corrected this or you need to do that and whatnot?
No, I couldn't.
But Charles is a part of the family. Get away with it. He can get away with it.
I stand corrected. Excuse me, sir.
Yes, he says he stand corrected. But he's given our sons of Africa new life. And see, we formed these brothers. And then Marimba Ani and others formed the sisters. So we knew that you had to put your hands on your people. That's how African manhood, womanhood works. Age groups and group grows and whatnot. This independent thing that we have to coming from the European doesn't work in terms of African culture. You do things collectively. You go through the age group process together, and then leaders emerge like these great ones that we've had.
Quadro.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yes. And then he invested, and he took good, hard-earned money.
Yes, he did.
Very skilled. He invested in the hotel in Ghana. So when you have our brother in Detroit investing in hotel, and you have other people investing in hotel, we were able to make a stand for Africans to see Black people investing in their country. And so, yes, I'm going to tell Professor Small that I had a chance of looking at our brother Quadro, and oh, wow, this is a little bit too much for me, but yeah. I'm going to enjoy it. Goodness.
Yeah. That's what's up.
Yeah.
So you may get a whole stream of people coming in from Akron, from Columbus, Ohio, from Youngstown, and certainly from Cleveland. So they may be wearing the Jeffries, waving the Jeffries banners. You can say, who are those people? Well, that's the Jeffries clan coming together to raise some hell, some African hell in Detroit.
There it is. There it is. Yeah. Make sure they go to hapifilm.com and get their tickets. Yes. Yes, they got to come through, get their tickets. This Sunday at 3 p.m. I just want to give a little shout out love to King Simon, Newbie again. Thank you so much. Nafisa, Dennis, DM, Always First Class Media, the Supreme Black Emperor. Some of these names, they're beautiful. Pseudo Charlatans, Leo Wright, Audrey Wilson. Thank you guys for always tuning in and being active. Michael Friend, Dr. Patal, Alma Davis. Thank you so much for for coming through. Last thing, guys, make sure that you sign up for our newsletter at hapifilm.com. And one more thing, because Dr. J is going to be at the conference. I'll keep talking about this conference right here. It's going to be the One Africa Returning to the Source Conference in Aswan, Egypt, the 20th through the 28th. It's limited availability, so you want to make sure you just put your deposit in. It's $300. It secures your seat, and we will. You just have to pay everything by January 18th, so you have time to try to work your to manifest, to bring it all down, to make it happen. So please, you can go to ICAT Tours. It's going across the screen right there. You go to ICAT Tours and put your deposit in and look at the itinerary. It's going to be a lot of fun. Dr. J is going to be there. Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Professor James Small, Dr. Wade Nobles, Asar Imhotep, Dr. Solange Ashby. We just added Dr. Bayina Bello and Anthony Browder. That's what we have just so far. So it's very, very important that you guys, definitely support. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. I just want to thank both of you guys for being here tonight. This is a well-needed conversation, and I can't wait to finish this conversation on Sunday.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Carry on. All right,
Yes.
Dr. J. I will be talking to you later. And
Yes, to the family. All right now.
All right.
Peace and
Good night, everybody. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
Okay, fam. There you go. So you want to make sure that that you are tuned in. Sign up. Go to all our social media platforms at hapifilm. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure you are following us. We will be doing a bunch of lives this weekend. We're going to be all over the place in Detroit. So make sure you are tuned in so you can see what we're up to if you can't get to the D. I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and for all the support and love. Again, thank you. And that's it. So, I love using my terms. Well, everybody uses it, but I got it from Professor James Small. When he is, when you're finished done talking to him, he says, peace and blessings. So peace and blessings until next time.
I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?